Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Sriwijaya. Today we will present about analyze discourse data qualitatively. Before explaining and discussing the main focus of the presentation, I would like to present a brief review of pragmatics and discourse analysis. So, although the definition of pragmatics and discourse analysis are not exactly the same, they both have the same concept. For example, many of them agree that pragmatics and discourse analysis address written discourse in various formats other than spoken discourse. The first is pragmatics. Atkinson, Kilby, and Roca in 1988 defined pragmatics as something related to the difference between what a speaker means and what the speaker might mean by his words. So it is generally understood that pragmatically in our lives, we often say something that we don't mean what we say. In other words, in our daily conversation, we often see that the actual meaning of sentences is less important than their indirect or implied meaning. Therefore, I strongly believe that pragmatics refers to the study of actual language use in real situation that is highly dependent on its situational context. Blended in 2000 defines pragmatic as the study of language use in contextual communication and the principle of the use associated with it. So this definition implies that context is indispensable in communication in addition to certain principles attached to it. Speakers often misunderstand when communicating because they have different contexts due to several factors such as distance, social aspect, and culture.
Hi, I'm Rizky Amira. Let's continue the next topics. It is about discourse analysis. Let's start with the word discourse. In its simplest form, discourse is verbal or written communication between people that goes beyond a single sentence. Importantly, discourse is more than just language. The term language can include all forms of linguistic and symbolic units, even things such as sign and etc. And language studies can focus on the individual meanings of words. Discourse goes beyond this and look at the overall meanings conveyed by language and context. And context here refers to the social, cultural, political, and historical background of the discourse. And it is important to take this into account to understand underlying meanings expressed through the language. A popular way of viewing discourse is as language used in specific social contexts, and as such language serves as a means of prompting some form of social change or meeting some form of goal. Let's look at the discourse analysis. Discourse analysis uses the language presented in a corpus or body of the data to draw meaning. This body of the data could include a set of interviews or focus group discussion transcript, while some forms of discourse analysis center in on the specific of language, such as sounds or grammar. Other forms of focus on how this language is used to achieve its aim. For example, discourse analysis could be used to assess how language is used to express different viewpoints on financial inequality and look at how the topic should or shouldn't be addressed or resolved, and whether this so-called inequality is perceived as such by participants. And what makes discourse analysis unique is that it posits that social reality is socially constructed, or that our experience of the world is understood from a subjective standpoint. Discourse analysis goes beyond the literal meaning of words and languages. And the purposes of discourse analysis are to investigate and to know the function of language, such as what language is used for, and etc., and how meaning is constructed in different contexts, which, to recap, include the social, cultural, political, and historical background of the discourse. For example, if you were to study a politician's speeches, You would need to situate these speeches in the context, which would involve looking at the politician background and views, the reasons for presenting the speech, the history or context of the audience, and the country's social and political history. Okay, I think that's all. The next method will be explained by Mutia Zaharanisa.
Hello, I'm Mutia Zaharanisa and I'm going to talk about the method of the study. To analyze the language data used in this study, the researcher used qualitative approach. Researcher tried to interpret the spoken data such as the interview conversations between two speakers and also the written data such as the essays written by the graduate students of English as a target language. The spoken data used in this study were in form of interview conversations between two master's graduate students of Sriwijaya University Graduate School who were taking the discourse analysis as a subject in the second semester of the academic year of 2009 and 2010. The two students were assigned arbitrarily out of 22 students as partners in an interview conversation down outside the classroom. In other words, they did not know who would be their partners until they were announced and given the written directions about what to do. And the topic of interview was what makes you like you are today. The written data intended for discourse analysis were in form of brief essays written outside the classroom by the same 22 students. They were given 1 week to do the writing of the essays as well as for the interview and to submit the CDR containing the interview recordings and their orthographical transcriptions and the printouts of one-page essay. 2 excerpts of each data category selected arbitrarily out of 22 sets were analyzed qualitatively. They were analyzed based on some of principles of pragmatics and discourse analysis suggested by McCarthy in 1991, Grundy in 2000, and Cutting in 2008, whenever applicable. That is adjacency pairs, exchangings, turn-takings, transactions and topics, references, ellipses, conjunctions, linguistic errors, especially tense and aspect. The data were called Indonesian English Interlanguage as used in the title for the following reasons. First, English used by speakers of other language is called interlanguage, following Salinger in 1972. The interlanguage data here were the English language produced by Indonesian learner of English either in spoken or written form. Second one, the researcher feels more convenient to call his English and as well as his graduate students as example of Indonesian English interlanguage rather than English as a foreign language. The third one, English produced by non-native speakers of English, including Indonesian speaker, is considered natural and normal language, that their English is acceptable as an approximate system, or idiosyncratic dialect according to Corder in 1986, which may contain certain expressions which may be common features of interlanguage and may also be found in native speakers using their own native language. Okay, I think that's all for my part. Thank you so much.
Hello there, let me introduce myself. My name is Azhar and Islami. We are from Group 1. Let me continue the topic of discussion. Now let me begin with qualitative analysis of Indonesian English interlanguage. So in this part, we would like to analyze some spoken and written data made by students mentioned before. The focus in this analysis is to see how the sentences or utterances relate to the context in which they are used. Let's look at number 1, the spoken data, which is the interview conversation. Excerpt of spoken data number 1. Okay, good morning, Annie. Morning. This morning, I would like to interview you about yourself. I want you to tell me about your complete name, age, marital status, and also your profession. Okay, my name is Yenny, and I am 36 years old. I am lecturer at Polytechnic Negeri Sriwijaya, and of course, I am married woman. Okay, thank you for your first question and the second one. So, what is your hobby? Well, actually, my hobby is singing and reading. But I always sing in my bathroom, but I have ever won as the third winner at Polytechnic Sriwijaya. Why do you like singing, Annie? Singing is interesting, I think. Fun, and it's make me happy. Yeah, and for reading, of course, because I am lecturer, I must read the reading material for my students. Okay, come back to you when you were at SMA. What were your ambition when you were at SMA? Now we're going to the analysis of the spoken data interview conversation number 1. So that was the conversation between Buzz and Yenny. The expression okay said by Buzz before greeting good morning Yenny sounds natural in English communication in that the two participants are being asked to interview each other on tape. And by saying Yenny after greeting, it indicates that both of them have known each other. Yenny's reply morning to Buzz's, though they have been familiar to each other, in fact, they have been classmates for 2 semesters. At the part, I want you to tell me about your complete name, age, marital status, and also your profession said by Buzz actually violates the principle of an interview as it sounds like an order. Besides, in English culture, it is not polite to ask someone's age and marital status unless it is a job-seeking interview, but it might become a problem too in this modern world. As a friend, to be polite and to show empathy, Yenny said okay, showing that she did not mind at all to be interviewed and tried to answer all questions asked. However, there is one thing that does not make sense. That is, Yenny says, of course, I am married woman, because it is confusing to other listeners, though not so to the interviewer. On the other hand, Yenny might have her own reason that seems to me to be a cultural one, in that in Indonesian culture, a woman who has been 36 years old is supposed to have been married, and she was proud that she had. In the next line, Buzz appreciated Yenny for answering his first question, but Buzz made a mistake lexically that what he meant was thank you for the first answer, not the first question, because he was the one who asked the question, not Yenny. And the word well said by Yenny in the following turn of speaking shows that she was a little bit confused how to answer Buzz's question, what is your hobby? She was asked about one hobby, but in fact she had more than one. So she said, my hobby is singing and reading. To explain about her hobby singing, she also created a contradictory expression. One way she tried to be humble saying I only sing in my bathroom, but on the other hand she wanted to show that she could sing well because she ever won the 3rd prize in a singing competition in her college. In the last line, Buzz said okay, come back to you when you were at SMA. That should mean that he wanted to go back to his interview business, wanted to know something more about how she was when she was still in high school. Linguistically, in terms of surface structure or form of the language, there are some errors made by Buzz like, what were your ambition? It should be what was your ambition. And by Yenny like, I am married woman should be I am a married woman. My hobby is singing and reading should be the is should be are, and it's make me happy should be it makes me happy. However, those errors are still considered local errors as they did not create problems in their communication, and the two speakers could understand each other very well despite their grammatical and lexical errors. Let's go to the second excerpt of spoken data. It's going to be conversation between Is and Yan. Let me read the dialogue for you. Okay, Mr. Yan, how are you today? Fine, sir. Thank you. Yeah, nice to see you again. Nice to see you. And it seems to me that after Wednesday, it's quite a long time for us not to see each other. Yeah, I think so. Are you busy? Not really. I want to say thank you for coming because you are very on time. And it is very important to us, right? Okay. Okay, Mr. Yan, can you tell me your complete name, please? Now let's go into the analysis. Similarly with the first excerpt, Is began his greeting by saying okay, which is quite appropriate in English context in that they were assigned to have the interview. It functions as a sign that Is was ready to begin the interview and he expected that Yan was also ready. Both of them use formal expression. Is said Mr. Yan and Yan said Sir, which were inappropriate in their context as they both were classmates and had known each other at least for 1 year. However, they said so because they thought they were in a formal context and wanted to show respect to each other and try to apply what they have knew about English culture about how to address people in a formal situation. But Ian did not ask a question in return to ask is how he was like. And you? Not because I think he forgot, but because it is not a part of their culture in Indonesian culture to ask back in return. In Indonesian culture, if someone asks, "Apa kabar?" or "How are you?" the partner just says, "Baik" or "Fine," without asking the same question in return like in English. In the next line is said, "Yeah, nice to see you again," indicates that they had met recently, to which Ian responding by saying, "Nice to see you," which should mean nice to see you again too. The last two words were not said by Ian, but it was that he meant. This is an example of the case of ellipsis, or something is missing in an utterance but understood. In the third, taking and speaking, is said, and it seems to me that after Wednesday it's quite a long time for us not to see each other. Implies that they would have a few days without courses because classes occurred on Monday through Wednesday, only 3 days a week. Logically, Ian understood that what is implied was it would be quite a long time around 4 days for them to be apart from each other. Ian's response, "Okay," means that he was ready and that it when that is began his question asking actually a silly question because in fact they had known each other's name. Is asked Ian, "Are you busy?" before he began interviewing him because he wanted to make sure that he would not disturb him, and more importantly he tried to be polite even though he probably knew that Ian was not that busy, which was confirmed by Ian's response, "Not really." What is said next in response to Ian was, "I want to say thank you for coming because you are very on time and it's very important to us, right?" should be taken to mean in another way that is was so grateful for Ian's punctuality to meet him as promised to have the interview. The expression sounds interlanguage or too wordy and not straightforward. Then in the last line of the excerpt is said, "Okay, Mr. Ian, can you tell me your complete name, please?" That indicates that Is wanted to know the complete name of his friend that he did not know before. Here, there are two things that should have been omitted to make a better sense of natural dialogue between friends, that is, the words "okay" and "Mr." Because the former is not necessary as it is a kind of repetition, although it is common in everyday conversation, and the later just made the dialogue sound formal, which is actually not so. That's all about my part. This part will be discussed by my friend.
Okay, my friend Nada has been explained about spoken data, and my part I would like to explain about written data, essays or text excerpt or written data. So excerpt here means kutipan. So I would like to make an analysis of this novel. This is from Professor Tuzaima Dahan Idiom. So I found interesting novel to analyze of this. So in this text, you can see this is actually a letter from Professor Demroh Isan, our Professor Demroh Isan. So I found this, I think this is very interesting to analyzing. And as you can read that, and I would like to make the analysis right now. So in here, in analyzing the following excerpt of Indonesian English interlanguage essay or text, I will do the same ways as my friend Nada explained about the spoken data, and I'm trying to find out the discourse analysis features that exist in those data and account for them using in discourse analysis theory. So in the first line you can read that, so I will just explain. So in this first excerpt, in the first sentence, the writer has entering his first college in the university. And the second line, right here, in early 1967, he took English education as his major in Palembang and did some examination from his lectures. And the third, you can see the last word, there is about some people might feel shy by saying help when I wasn't that good in English. However, he was trying to show that he needs to study together by learning and wants to prove that education is essential in his life. Therefore, he intends to study hard to earn more knowledge and eventually gain a better score since there are a lot of assignments given by his lecturer. And one thing in this line about the writer who was lucky to be accepted in English Education Department of IKIP Bandung Cabang Palembang before it was changed to become the Faculty of Teacher Training in Sriwijaya University as it today. And here you can see this is still a letter from Professor Demrah Isran, our lecturer. So you can read that. So in here, by saying unless I had studied hard from seriously during my first in college, I will have not been what I am right now. So it means that the writer wants to share his experience and the way he sees his life and world, meaning that if people around you will get motivated to do the same thing. And also the next is that part. So the writer was studying together together with friends, and one of his friend, which is the one become his wife already, also active in the organization for student or HMI. So the last sentence in the excerpt indicate that the writer has grateful for what he had shared by joining the organization with his friend and also discussing the assignment that organization gave it for them. Okay, I want to continue about discussing and interpretation. So discussion right here is based on the excerpt and analyze above. I will try to discuss about featuring of prac and DA as mentioned before. Adjacency pairs are understood as prac. Feeders in spoken data like interview conversation. They refer to fundamental units to talk consisting of the sequence of two paired units produced by different speaker so that the first pair part triggers an appropriate second part that's based on the Grundy 2000. In the data, the adjacent pairs do exist very well in that there are first pair parts followed by second parts that are made natural conversation. There are example of greetings, question, answer, comments, and comments. Next, exchange and turn-takings. Exchange and turn-taking seems to occur nicely between the speaker and the Indonesian English International Spoken Data. The two speakers in the two excerpts have very balanced exchange and turn-taking in conducting the conversation, although in a while found that interviews take more time for expression, transaction, and topics. So here that the speaker and the interview conversation use as a data in this study to have in transaction as the time either one of them uses a set transaction markers like okay, so, to, or how they have a good understanding each other's tasks, questioning and answering. As they are assigned to advise that they are to interview conversation based on a given topic. What makes you are us today? The pairs of speakers did not show any interaction to change the topic of talk. In other words, it can be said that they have excellent interaction in their conversation. After all, he has a classmate which is that in organization, then they know each other for very well. Reference. In the logic, expected that in language data as well as in written data, there will be reference, although at time happen in interlanguage data they are not cohesive. For example, like reference or pronouns he, they, it may not always be clear actually. However, in the data of Indonesian English interlanguage analyzed above, the pronouns do have clear refers to person or object mentioned in the preceding sentence or paragraph. Besides of studying together with my classmates, some of including one of my classmates. That's the example of oral data you can see right here. So next is about we did really have a good time in our study in the organization. We often go together to discuss our academic assignment. So this is the second example of oral data excerpt. And also I will explain more about it. My classmate and I studied together a lot because we had a lot of assignment given by our lecturers. And it helped badly from my friends because I was not good in English. So this is the example. Also, beside of studying together with my classmates, some of us, including one of my classmates. And also, so the last one is we did really have a good time in our study and in the organization. So we often got together to discuss our academic assignment. So I will give you more about that. Okay, I think that's all for me to explanation about discuss and interpretation. My friend Rizka will explain more about it.
Hi, good morning everyone. How are you today? Hope you are doing great. So now, I am Rizka Razimona as the last speaker of today's material. Today, I'm going to talk about these materials. Now, let's come to the first point, ellipsis and substitution. Ellipsis or substitution. Ellipsis refers to the omission of elements normally required by grammar, which the speaker or writer assumes are obvious from the context and therefore no need to be raised. Substitution is similar to ellipsis in that in English it operates either nominal, verbal, or causal level. In this example, there is the word in the same boat. We know that in the same boat is not literal meaning, and then it is no need to be explained anymore because both the speakers and the listeners already know what is it about. Next is politeness. Politeness refers to the relationship between how something is said and the addressee's judgment as to how it should be said. Politeness is a very important feature in pragmatic and discourse analysis. What is interesting, not only non-native speakers, but also native speakers of language sometimes occasionally misuse the forms according to the situational and social context that involve factors like the participant settings and function of the expressions. Now, in the data, here is the example. Here you can see Mr. Dim sent a very polite email to the professor by using the words like dear and then sincerely and so on. However, Mr. David only replied directly by saying the name Dimro and then David and thanks instead of sincerely. So here, Mr. David considers that Mr. Dim is over polite. And to Mr. David, this is based on American culture, it will be fair and acceptable enough for Mr. Dim to address him as David only. So here is the politeness occur. In the data, some conjunctions are also found. For example, but and. It is used to show the relationship between the segments of the discourses. Here is the example. My hobby is singing and reading, but I only sing in my bathroom. Next, My brother, sisters, and I could finish our study until university, and also I can be like now. The next is linguistic errors, especially tense and aspect. In Bahasa Indonesia, or Indonesian language, there is no such things like tense but aspect. So therefore, inappropriate tense shifts from past to present, from present to the future commonly occur in Indonesian English interlanguage. Other errors like the use of pronouns, articles, and then pluralization are also found, but they belong to the local errors. Here is the example. In the statement, it's read that I am lecturer at Polytechnic Negeri Sriwijaya and I am married woman. So you can find the mistake here. Yes, it's the to be. It's supposed to be I am a lecturer at Polytechnic Negeri Sriwijaya, and of course I am a married woman. So the article is missing over there. Now let's come to the interpretation. The analysis of the data of the previous pages yields two implications with respect to: number one, the importance of pragmatic and discourse analysis in language teaching and learning, and number two, how to teach pragmatic and discourse analysis to Indonesian English interlanguage learners. Now, let's break it into the points. Number one, the importance of pragmatic and discourse analysis in language teaching and learning. There are 5 importances of teaching that. Number one is pragmatic and discourse analysis can help teachers and their learners better understand exactly in the intended meanings the speakers or writers have in mind. Therefore, the teacher should provide authentic discourses to the class so that the students can store and develop and then also use the knowledge of the target language as much as possible. And the second is that the benefit of pragmatic and discourse analysis in relation to the language teaching and learning is that no matter how smart someone is, either they are native speakers or non-native speakers, so occasionally mistakes happen. So it is very popular that nobody is perfect. This principle is quite positive and supporting the language learning. So in that, the teacher should always appreciate the students because after all, nobody wants to make mistake. The third one is through pragmatic and discourse analysis, language teachers can notice some problems encountered by the learners in oral as well as in written expressions. Later, the teacher can classify the errors made by the students into some categories. For example, local and then global, or serious errors. For example, it's due to ungrammatical utterances or sentences, or the less serious ones that is usually influenced by the student's performance. The fourth is that through pragmatic and discourse analysis, directly or indirectly, language teachers can think the sources of the errors or the mistake made, and then from there later the teachers also can think the possible ways to help the learners to reduce their errors and improve their language, of course, their performance. The fifth one is that language teachers can help the learners to understand oral discourses more accurately by realizing that oral discourses contain phonological cues to the intended message or meaning. In other words, in oral communication, the learners often missed the real intended meaning from the discourses due to their lack of information, knowledge, and sensitivity to the suprasegmental phonemes like intonation. Next is how to teach pragmatic and discourse analysis. First of all, it is very important to understand that probably there is no such best way or best method or strategy or model or whatever people call it to teach a foreign or second language. Success is very much dependent on very much key factors. For example, students' motivations or the aims of the learnings, and then students' age, environment, and so many more. However, here Passon et al. 2007 did a study that examining the role of two sixth grade Spanish teachers' discursive practices in the context-based instruction. And then through the classroom observation, discourse analysis, teacher interviews, and students writing assignments, they observe and suggest that the teacher talk is significant in engaging students in learning both language and also content. In addition, other suggestions suggested ways to Indonesian teachers teaching ELF, English language as a lingua franca, in terms of pragmatic and discourse analysis as follows. The first one, to promote Indonesian English interlanguage learners' proficiency and understanding and producing English pragmatically, teachers should provide discursive practices both orally and in writing practice. Both orally and in writing containing appropriately linguistic and pragmatic, including discourse analysis features. And the subheading of this should be included in English teaching curricula at all levels of schooling and applied in student-centered classroom atmosphere. The last one is to have adequate mastery of the subject matter taught. The teacher should strive to be professional and highly motivated, and then innovative and fair and wise and appreciative, disciplined and patient, and of course friendly. Okay, I think that's all the explanation from me. Thank you so much for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bye.